In this lesson, we're taking a look at 3 super famous riffs that you can play using only one string at a time. In the previous lesson, we looked at 3 AC/DC riffs on one string, so do check that one out if you're a fan. But in this lesson, we're exploring some other artists. This is just to give you a nice simple introduction to series 4 of my beginner guitar course, just sticking on the one string for now, but of course we are going to build on that in the next few lessons. All the terminology and techniques used in these lessons are covered in the previous series of my beginner course, which you can find nice and organised on my YouTube channel page, so feel free to check that out if you want to brush up on anything. I'm also going to upload some drum tracks to my Patreon page, which you can find a link to in the description, so you can practice these riffs along to drums at different tempos. But without further ado, let's get stuck into the first riff, which is I Can't Get No Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones. So Satisfaction has a really short riff, which makes it fairly simple to play around in a loop until you've really nailed the sound. We're going to start with the first finger, playing the 2nd fret on the A string, which is the note B, and in the first phrase we're going to play that note twice. Following this, in the 2nd phrase we're going to start with that same note, then we're going to move up to the 3rd finger, playing the 4th fret on the A string, so... and from there we're going to move the 3rd finger up to the 5th fret. So that little 3-note run. So in total, so far, we've got... and then for the ending, I'm going to play that 5th fret another 2 times. I'm then going to slide the 3rd finger down to the 4th fret. And then I'm going to pick the 4th fret afterwards. So that sounds like this. So the rhythm is pick, pick, slide, pick. So pick, pick, slide, pick. It's really important that you don't pick the string as you slide the finger, because that'll change the sound. You can hear that it's a slide and not a picked note. And you also want to make sure that you keep the pressure on the fret, so when you do the slide you can still hear that 4th fret ringing out. And from that point the riff just repeats from the 2nd fret again. Now in terms of the rhythm for this one, sometimes on the recording the first 2 notes are sustained and sometimes they're staccato, so I'm not going to be too strict on exactly how you play these. You could just let them ring out. Or you could make them staccato. Both sound pretty good, and that's probably why he's changed between them in the actual recording. Now when you do the run up through the 2nd, 4th and 5th frets, it's important that you make these notes nice and smooth and flow into one another. I've got some information on exactly how to do that in my musical punctuation video, so feel free to check that out if you're not quite sure. And in terms of the finger choice, my preference would be the 1st, moving to the 3rd and then sliding the 3rd up. But you could, there are a few options here. You could do it all with the 1st finger. Not the most efficient, but I suppose it does keep it nice and simple. Or you could do the 1st finger, jump the 1st finger up to the 4th fret, and then the 2nd finger playing the 5th fret. And then you do the pick, pick, slide, pick movement with the 2nd finger as well. And start again from the 1st finger. So there are a few options with finger choice. Just go with whichever feels best, but make sure it all sounds nice and smooth. Do give it a go playing this riff along to some drums. The tempo is just under 140 BPM, so it's quite a fast riff really, but it's fairly simple. There's not too many notes in it or anything. So if you start practicing it at a slower speed, it shouldn't take you too long to get it back up to normal speed if you just gradually raise the tempo as you're practicing. But that was Satisfaction, and now it's time to move on to the next riff, which is 7 Nation Army. this is a great riff for beginners. I normally end up teaching this to most students who are brand new to guitar, and even those who aren't too familiar with the original recording tend to get into it and enjoy playing it. Now I should mention that on the track, the initial sound that you're hearing sounds quite a lot like a bass. It's actually a really low tuned guitar. We're just going to be playing it in standard tuning for ease, so it'll sound a bit higher, but you can still play all the right notes. If you really wanted to get it sounding a bit more like the record, you could experiment putting an octave pedal on, and then you'll hear your guitar an octave down as well, and that would better mimic the sound that you're hearing on the original recording. But getting into the notes that he plays, we're starting with the first finger, playing the 7th fret on the A string, which is the note E, and we're going to play that note twice. We're going to play like a long sustained note, then a short staccato note. So I'm holding the finger down, lifting it up for a split second, then just pressing it down, picking again for a split second, and lifting it off. So have an experiment with the finger pressure and the timing until you can mimic that sound. I sometimes describe this as like a Morse code type thing, so this would be a dash dot. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. So the next note is going to be the 10th fret on the same string. Now when I play this, I use the little finger, and that means I don't have to change the hand position. So we'd have... But if you struggle with the little finger for now, you could just jump the first finger up to the 10th fret. Or you could use the 3rd finger. Just go with whatever feels comfortable for now. But after that note, we're jumping straight back to the 7th fret. So if you do use the first finger to jump up to the 10th fret, you have to get it back to the 7th fret fairly quickly, so that might be worth considering. Whereas if you use the little finger, first finger can just hover over that 7th fret ready to play that next note. So that's the first little phrase. We're now going to descend down the dots on that string, so we've just played the 7th fret, next we're going to play the 5th fret, then we're going to play the 3rd fret. So just following the inlays on the fretboard or the dots on the top of the neck. And then the final note is going to be the 2nd fret, so just a semitone movement at the end, and we're going to sustain that 2nd fret note until the end of the bar. So that ending, if I put the whole thing together, 3rd fret and 2nd fret nice and sustained at the end there. So it was 7, 7, 10, 7, 5, 3, 2, and then it just starts again from that 7th fret. So you might want to put a little slide in to get back from the 2nd fret to the 7th. But if I play it round a couple of times, and I'm just doing all down picks in the right hand at this point, and that gives you your main riff. Now if you pay attention to the structure of this song, you'll notice that it doesn't really have a chorus. It kind of just plays the riff in a kind of big high dynamic fashion, and that sort of acts as the chorus. And normally when you play this song at gigs, people just sing the riff back at you, so it very much acts like a chorus in that sense as well. But you might notice that there's a little variation on the riff in this section of the song. It starts with the normal riff that we've just learned, but then every alternate time it'll play this. So a little alternative ending there. Then it'll go back to the first riff. Then the alternate riff. And then it'll transition back into the verse, which just plays that main riff on repeat. So if you want to throw this little variation in the right section in the song, you're going to start the riff in exactly the same way. So work your way down the dots again, and then after we've played the 3rd fret, we're going to go 3, 5, 3, 2. So if you're just using the first finger, you could jump it up, so 3, 5, 3, 2. If you're trying to incorporate some of the other fingers as well, which I would advise that you try and do, you could go 1st finger, 3rd finger on 5th, back to 1st finger, then 2nd. So that would be... And that's just training you from an early stage to have a little bit more efficiency in your playing. But remember, listen to the structure of the song and make sure you're only throwing in that variation where it happens in the original recording. And finally, there's one other part. I know that we're mainly sticking to riffs on just one string at the moment, but if you want to complete the song, you can drop down to the low E string to play that sort of build-up section that he uses to transition between the verses and choruses, which sounds like this. And then from there, you jump straight back into that main riff. If you want to do this, as I say, it's low E string. I'm just using the first finger and I'm going to go 3rd fret and then 5th fret. So the notes G and then A. And I'm just doing down picked 8th notes in the right hand. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So it feels like a fairly quick jump to get from that 5th fret low E to 7th fret A, but again, worth practicing, and then you can play along with the entire song. And on that note, I would strongly advise finding the YouTube video for this song and having a jam along. That will help you sort out the timing, and you can also slow the video down if you're finding it a little bit too fast, and then gradually raise the speed back to normal tempo. But also it'll help you develop an ability to start memorizing the structure of the song, which is a really important skill as a musician, because if you're ever going to play in a band, you've got to play through songs the whole way from start to finish and change between all the sections at the right time. You'll also start to develop cues for when to change section. So I'll give you a quick example. In this song, he sings the word cigarette at the end of the first verse, and it's a really good sign that you've only got one more riff to play and then you're about to change into the chorus. So it's little things like that that help you navigate songs. It's good if you come up with them yourself, so I'll leave the rest of the song up to you. And for now, we're going to take a look at the next riff of this lesson, which is Another One Bites the Dust by Queen. Now I would say compared to the other riffs that we've looked at in this lesson, Another One Bites the Dust has some things in it that make it a little bit more complex, but that's great because it's all about leveling up your playing, so that is a good thing. On the record, it starts out with just the bass playing, and then Brian May kind of listens to it a couple of times and then joins in with the guitar, so you can do the same thing. There's a little extra bit that is added when it's just the bass, so I will teach you that, but obviously it's not necessary if you're just trying to mimic the guitar part. So when the guitar comes in, we're actually starting with 3 staccato notes on the open low E string. Now the way I'd go about doing this is to actually start with the left hand just resting lightly on the strings to keep them all quiet. And then when you pick, just raise the fingers ever so slightly so it frees up that open low E string, and then immediately put them back down to muted again and you'll get this sound. So hopefully you can see my fingers just moving away from the string at exactly the right moment to let it ring out temporarily, and then falling back down to mute it again. Following that, we're sticking on the low E string and we have this interesting little rhythm going on. So what we're doing there is 2 notes that are quite close together and then one that comes a little bit after. So you've got to make sure you get that da-da-da style rhythm. And then we're going to kind of climb the fretboard a little bit. We're going to play the 3rd fret, which is the note G, with the first finger. Then play the open low E string again, so it feels like we're kind of bouncing off the low E here. And then we're going to finish with 3rd finger playing the 5th fret, which is the note A. So that whole ending was... Okay, so you got your 3 notes on the low E, then 3, open, 5. I'm going to go into the specifics of the picking and give you a right hand close-up in a second, because that'll explain the rhythm a little bit better, but those are the melody notes. So we've got the 3 staccato notes, then the little climb. And then make sure you leave the rest at the end as well before starting again from that open low E. Now I also mentioned that there was a little run that the bass does. If you want to throw this in as well, it sounds like this. So it's like a quick little flourish that leads into those staccato notes. All we're doing is third finger playing the 5th fret, first finger playing the 3rd fret, and then leading straight into that open string. The only tricky thing about this is it's quite quick and you've got to have quite good synchronization between the left and right hand to get it nice and smooth. So maybe start by practicing it really slowly. Just those 3 notes, 5, 3 and open. Make sure you can transition between them all really smoothly and there's no gaps there. Then eventually, as you speed it up, you'll get that. And then the speed of the song. And also important to note that if you are going to play this along to some drums and you are going to throw that little extra bit in, it comes in on the and of beat 4. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So by starting the run on the and of 4, that means that your first staccato low E note lands on beat 1 of the first bar of the riff. And if we take a quick look at the picking now, the first thing I want to mention is that you can palm mute this riff to get a bit of a tighter sound. So without the palm muting, it would sound like this. And with the palm muting, you get this. So it just sounds a little bit more rhythmic, might be something you want to throw in if you like that sound. Now in terms of the picking direction, the 3 staccato notes I'm just doing as down picks. But then when we start that climbing phrase, I want you to start with an up pick, so your first 2 quick notes are an up down, and then the next one is an up. So you get up down up. The reason you do that is because in the next phrase, you want your fretted notes, the 3 and 5, to both land on the down picks with the open string as an up pick in between them. So that would be down, up, down. So down pick the 3rd fret, up pick the open string, and then down pick the 5th fret. And that just means that your accents are going to land on the down picks, the main beats of the riff. Okay, so we've got down, 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 up, down, up, down, up, down. Then again, down, 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 up, down, up, down, up, down. Might feel a little bit strange starting that second phrase with an up pick rather than a down pick, but it's something that you want to get used to because it'll just give you a little bit more variety in the way that you can pick things, and it might make some things seem a little bit more simpler in the long run when they require that kind of picking. Now if you want to do the little fast bass flourish thing that he does at the start, that's going to be a down, up, down. So I'm going down on the 5th fret, up on the 3rd, and then down on the open string. So pretty simple really, just down, up, down. As I say, the tricky thing is that synchronization. So you've got to get the transition between the fingers and the picking at exactly the right time. So that's the 3rd finger, and then as I switch to the 1st finger, pick the string, and then as the 1st finger comes off, down pick the string. Okay, if you have any sort of hesitations anywhere, you'll get this sound instead, where you've got gaps in between. It's not what you want nice and smooth, which all comes from that synchronization. So the whole thing and with the tight palm muting sound, so as I mentioned, a few more kind of complexities to this riff, but it's worth getting the hang of it just to improve your playing a little bit more. The little quick flourish isn't particularly necessary on the guitar because he doesn't really play it, so that's just a little bit of extra work if you fancy an extra challenge, but try and get that main part of the riff down, try playing it along to the original track, try playing it along to the drum tracks as well, and just have a bit of fun with it. So there you have a few more riffs to start playing about with, still just focusing on the one string at a time, but we have upped the complexity ever so slightly. Remember, any terminology or techniques that you're struggling with, check out the previous series of my beginner course on YouTube. It's all nice and organized on my channel page. Feel free to subscribe if you want to follow along with the lessons, and I'd be grateful if you give the video a like if you found it helpful. I'm also going to upload the drum tracks to my Patreon page, which you can also find in the link in the description, so you can practice the riffs along to drums at different tempos. From the next lesson onwards, I'm going to be removing the single string limitation, meaning that we're going to get even more complexity and you can start developing your playing even further. So I'll see you in those lessons.